go ahead and put all our computers away, all that stuff. You won't need them today. You won't need your notes. Like I said, I'm looking at folks out there, you know, who aren't really in my class. They're in somebody else's class, and that's fine. but we do have a responsibility to try to teach you something today. So I'm going to wait. I still see people working on other things.
So can you just take everything off your desk, please?
Right. Okay. So listen, grades course got posted again yesterday. Let's kind of take a quick look at the sharing of the screen here. We've got the website. We're trying to keep it posted for you. We're dividing the days into categories now to make it simpler to find things. For example, we'll start out today with some things about the election. So I put all the election things, not the election, I'm sorry, but the transition. And I put all that down here in your research paper. So I'll put little mini lectures down here. So if you remember something, I can put that in my paper. You can click on it, find it, put it in your paper, that kind of thing. These speeches are really helpful. And hopefully you're doing your research and things are going well that way. Then as far as the college lecture on the origins of government, this will be 4 lectures here, but they'll be short and just on those topics. So you won't have to fumble around through a bunch of other things to get to the information on the study guide here. That won't be for a couple of weeks. So we'll give you that just before you go on break. And then this is the assignment that's coming in now. And the writing's been really good on that. Remember, the research matters a lot, but raise your hand if you guys noticed that if you haven't done this paper, that your grades just dropped 30% overnight. Raise your hands. Did you guys see that? Why?
Because it's worth so much. Yeah, she said because it's worth so much, the category.
That's the first score in a category where we haven't put a score in yet. And it's 30% of your grade. This is where the research paper is going in. So for those of you who haven't, those of you done it, your grades are just fine. But the majority of you suffered a 30% drop. Now, don't panic, because that will come right back up as soon as you complete that and do it well. So I'll really be keen on the research on that one. So make sure you get your research and find the quotes, find what these 2 senators said about their vote, and make sure you do a good job there. Now, this is what will happen if you don't do your research paper. The research paper is worth so much. If you don't do it, grade will drop 30% from what would have been an A down to probably a C minus. So get your research done. It's really, really, really important. Okay, now saying that, let's go ahead and move on to the regularly scheduled lecture. And we have, this is not a fun day for me. I mean, these are not the kind of days that you enjoy because we hit some pretty grim milestones. Here we are 35 days in, 35 to 41 this week. On day 60, you can start turning in your research papers for early turn-in. But we just hit a milestone. I took this picture yesterday. We're at 499,000. We passed that. We're now at 500,000 Americans dead from the coronavirus. It's been devastating. That's more than all of our combat deaths in World War I, World War II, and Vietnam combined. Those are combat deaths. Overall deaths in World War II in all theaters was closer to 400,000, still way over that, way over that. It's just, this is the most devastating mass casualty event in American history since the last pandemic, which took about 670,000 Americans, and then the Civil War, which took somewhere between 650,000 and 700. To give it that kind of scale, before we're through this, we could reach Civil War numbers. And as a country, we've done very poorly. We can't sugarcoat that. That's history. This right here shows the 10 most affected countries. Only Brazil and the United States are doing so horribly. We have managed since the inauguration of President Biden and 100 days of mask wearing to do much, much, much better. The numbers this morning, the 7-day average should see this little dip again, hopefully. We saw a little bit of an uptick. That was probably the Super Bowl partying. That's probably what did that. When people, decide they're not going to socially distance or wear masks and they get themselves in trouble. But here's the grim statistic. The United States is 4.25% of the world's population, and we're 20% of those who have passed. 20%. We are not acting like a great superpower when it comes to medicine, when it comes to saving lives. 4.25% of the world's population. And you do the math, it's real easy. Here's the global deaths. Here's the US deaths. You do the math. That's real easy math to do. 20%. So we've done terribly. We're not world leaders. We're not. In this fight, countries like New Zealand and Australia and South Korea and Singapore and China, they've had nowhere near this problem. Canada to our north has not had anywhere near this problem. Other countries that have struggled include, of course, these countries here, India, but they're 1.5 billion people and they've had far fewer deaths than we've had. Russia, Indonesia. Anyway, we're on a bad list here. We need to get off that list. So what we're going to do is just stop for a second and pay respects to all of those folks who we've lost. It's tragic. We're still months ahead where we've got, sadness ahead of us. And we just got to hang in there and do our part, socially distance, wear masks, stop the spread, keep our hospitals free, all of that stuff. So here's a little memorial, let's call it, if you will, a moment of silence on our part to respect those who didn't make it.
All right, Kelly O'Donnell at the White House for us. Kelly, thank you. Now back to that number so large, it's almost impossible to comprehend. Today, we marked 500,000 American lives lost to COVID. That's as many people as the entire population of Atlanta passing away in one single year. But behind each number is a life, each one a painful hole in someone's heart. A beloved nurse who inspired her colleagues. Thank you. A devoted father.
We hope all your dreams come true and you live happily ever after.
A music teacher.
I love to sing. It's one of those things that changes students' lives.
A Detroit bus driver.
Yeah.
Grandfathers who danced with their kids. Some dancing even in their 90s. A middle school librarian who always kept in touch.
I called you back. Call me back. I love you.
A football coach and mentor.
I'm only 33 years old right now. Well, all right, 33 plus. But it's been a glorious year. And just 2020, I have good vision for this. Get it? 2020 vision.
A proud Marine who served his country for 25 years.
Happy birthday to all the Marines, past Marines, active Marines, wherever they are, in harm's way.
A high school junior and cancer survivor. An educator who inspired those going off into the world.
Be resilient in life when there's disappointment or failure. Do your best work no matter who's watching. Stay true to all that you believe in.
A loving son with so much ahead of him. A grandmother who always kept the faith.
it's only fitting that we should take a few minutes and remember. And the thing with this is that so many people, of course, escape it unscathed, which is a good thing. We don't ever want to take those blessings, and if you get it and you get over it quickly, that's a blessing, right? But there's so many people who don't. And so our job is to help protect others, right? And so that's why we wear masks, we socially distance. We don't know if we're inadvertently spreading. And even if we don't feel like we're in any real danger, to wear a mask anyway, just to set an example. I mean, pure and simple, goes back to love thy neighbor, right? So at any rate, this is the tough news. And there's moments in our history where we just have to face tough news. I'm going to go to this other story, though, to Utah. I'm going to just jump ahead a little bit in the lecture, and let's get talked about some good news. And Utah, I think, is a good news story. You know the difference now between good government here in Utah and bad government in Texas that let that whole energy grid go down because they just wanted to cut costs and not follow any rules. Just let companies do whatever they want. And they're paying the price, and we'll go back to that. But in Utah, we've done really, really well comparatively, at least in my estimation. And Governor Cox, and you need to know his name, that's on part of the state test. And I think you guys already have answered a question on that already, but he won in this last election. He's only been in office 20 days longer than Biden. Governors, take the oath for their states right around January 1st, but he's really done a great job so far. From my, it's my opinion, you might have a different one. But nevertheless, Utah was 39th in shot rollouts when Mr. Cox took office, but we have jumped since to number 4. That's what a good leader can do. This was according to KSL reporting, after he told the health departments, and these are government-funded health departments that are responsible to vaccinate people and all this kind of thing. Any rate, he said basically in his first week that he'd get them whatever they needed. Don't worry about the cost. You just do the job and we'll figure it out. Yesterday, the governor did predict that assuming no more intense weather delays. Now, this storm that's hit the East Coast has caused a lot of delays, especially through the FedEx company that's delivering a lot of the vaccines to big parts of the country. Their Tennessee hub got shut down for a while. So this is affecting us all, right? Utah would have all willing adults dosed by the end of May, which if you'd asked anybody even 3-4 weeks ago, it would be end of June. So he's bought us a full month. He asked for 1,000 volunteers to join our healthcare, our public healthcare, where we pay for it as a government, to join in, asked for 1,000 to basically vaccinate people. And they had 4,500 people sign up in just a matter of minutes to say they'd be willing to step up and help, including one of my wife's friends who's been involved in this and so on. Now, here's the thing. Politics in Utah, I tell you, it's practical, right? We're not the same as some of those other states that you see where they're so divided. Governor Cox did something special with his opponent. His Democratic opponent was Chris Peterson. Now, you guys know as well as I do that as soon as Cox got the Republican nomination, he was going to win the governorship. Mr. Peterson, good guy. I heard the debate between these two, never stood a chance. But that's okay because they came together and did this ad that went viral. And it's just a great ad. Let's go ahead and watch this ad right here.
I'm Spencer Cox, your Republican candidate for Utah governor.
And I'm Chris Peterson, your Democratic candidate for governor.
We are currently in the final days of campaigning against each other.
But our common values transcend our political differences, and the strength of our nation rests on our ability to see that.
We are both equally dedicated to the American values of democracy, liberty, and justice for all people.
We just have different opinions on how to achieve those ideals.
But today, we are setting aside those differences to deliver a message that is critical for the health of our nation.
That whether you vote by mail or in person, we will fully support the results of the upcoming presidential election, regardless of the outcome.
Although we sit on different sides of the aisle, we are both committed to American civility and a peaceful transition of power.
And we hope Utah will be an example to the nation.
Because that is what our country is built on.
Please stand with us on behalf of our great state and nation.
My name's Spencer Cox.
And I'm Chris Peterson.
And we approve this message.
This is how our politics should be and was in the past. And Utah, of course, in these guys, they became, instantly famous across the country as people played this and says, why can't we do that here? And this is where the Utah political parties, I think, did a great job. They each picked a great candidate. They had a wonderful debate. They shared ideas, but now the opponents in the legislature working with the governor, trying to get things done. And that's how it should work. That's good government. And we're seeing the results of that right here in Utah. And we can be very proud of that. Okay, so where do we stand now? Here's February 27th. How's the Biden administration doing and how's the Cox administration doing? One on state level, one on federal level, or 610,000 doses, 205,000 have received the second dose. We're at 6.5%. So getting to the 10%, which would be our share of that 100 million people being vaccinated, looks like it's well within reach. Remember where we started on January 30th, which was basically a month ago. We're at 0.5%, and we've jumped to 0.6%. Obviously, it takes a partnership. And that's one of the things that I want to teach you. It takes a federal state partnership where they work together when they need to. And then some things are better administered, the shots, for example, we're more prepared to decide how to do that here in Utah. And so get us the vaccine, we'll get it delivered. And this is the kind of partnership or balance that we hope for. What happened in Texas was, well, they decided to go a different way. They decided not to participate in the grid system. Here's on their infrastructure that they could provide. They said, this has started in the 1990s, cheaper rates here in Texas. We don't have to pay as much because we won't have all these rules and regulations. All these little companies just do what they want, and they're managed by this one central group here. Well, they didn't follow the rules that you have to follow in the Eastern or Western thing to harden it against all sorts of eventualities. Plus, here's the other problem. You take a look at this map right here, and this is a good one to look at. They were not part of then, because they weren't following those rules, of the Western grid or the Eastern grid. Except for this part of Texas right here this part of Texas here, they'd had no problems there at all. They were tied to a bigger grid. So when the electricity went out and everything failed here, they could draw power from other parts of the country or even from Canada. This grid goes all the way up to Canada. If you look at the previous thing, we're tied to Canada, has a lot of energy and resources. So why not link to them? And so that took a treaty, to make that happen, that our national government worked out. So Utah, we didn't have rolling blackouts and all that kind of thing. Now let's go back to, these issues then, and let's take a look at some of these other things that are going on in the country. Okay, so let's go ahead to this Texas problem. And this is an example of bad government. When things go wrong, the government fails to deliver essential services, the voters get really upset. And that's when they change their government. Let's go ahead and hit play here.
The desperation growing in Texas following those deadly winter storms. Millions are still without drinking water tonight. The temperatures are finally rising, but so is outrage over absurdly high electric bills. Morgan Chesky reports from Dallas.
Tonight, a Texas-sized thaw, flooding the state with one problem after another. Crews rushing to fix burst water lines as many try to find emergency supplies.
It's devastating, we shouldn't have to live like this,
Gilbert Gomez, one of 5 million now forced to either boil or find bottled water. Tonight, Houston lifting their boil water notice as the capital city of Austin enters day 5. Today, the governor addressing another widespread problem.
Texans who have suffered through days of freezing cold without power should not be subjected to skyrocketing energy bills due to a spike in the energy market.
Now listen to what happened here. What happened here was that they deregulated the market so that you pay based on the price you've got to pay. Well, if you're having to pay a lot of money to get electricity on an emergency basis from another power grid, those rates are going to be high if it's passed on to the individual instead of absorbed by all these companies first and then balance it out. They had bills $1,000 a day in some parts of Texas because of their ridiculous system. Texas is looking like a very bad third world country right now in terms of its infrastructure.
Now restricting energy companies from cutting off customers due to non-payment, essentially placing all bills on hold.
This is the retirement home.
Correct.
But it could be too late for Texans like Scott Willoughby, who signed up for Gritty Energy after they advertised wholesale prices, not knowing his rate could vary with the market. So when power supply went down from the storm, his typically $200 bill took off.
When it was all said and done, what was the damage?
Did you see that? His $200 a month bill went to $16,000. Texas has got a lot to answer for right now.
$1,798, something like that.
And this was not a bill. This was withdrawn.
This was withdrawn straight from my account.
Here's by the time the Vietnam vet switched
So they just take whatever.
dipped in retirement savings.
It's been a bad situation. And the financial burden on top of it just compounds it.
NBC News reached out to Gritty for comments, but has not heard back. Willoughby not alone, joining millions of Texans in need of help. In Houston, some accepted water from Senator Ted Cruz.
Oh, now here's a story. Senator Ted Cruz, who was candidate for president, was going to run for president again. I think he's finished as a candidate. I don't think he'll be able to be elected in Texas again because when it turned cold, he just flew his entire family to Cancun for however long. Yeah. Cancun, Mexico. I'm getting a lot of feedback on that.
They're just commenting.
Oh, you're okay. That's fair.
I
Absolutely
think
fair.
if you make a lot of money, that's why. So you can go somewhere else when there's problems.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you work hard.
Yeah. Except when you're the elected official, they're trying to solve the problem. And he got caught and he changed his ticket and came back, and now he's doing this photo op. But I think that finishes him because his opponent in the last election, Beto O'Rourke, was out there. He lives in El Paso. They were taking food and supplies and everything else and was visibly helping. So yeah, Ted Cruz may be finished as a candidate for that mistake. So we'll see. People hold their elected officials accountable. And watch now, I just want you to do this. I want you to watch what happens 2 years from now when Texas goes through its next election. It could be a game changer. Now, the reason I want to stop here and point this out is this. It's when we have major crises that we make major changes. And with that, basically, let me pause the filming here because let's stop the share. I've got to do this for a second.